Hi, I'm Paul Marcel. So today I was going to use a trick I've used in the past for getting some visuals on the inside of a project, and I thought I'd go ahead and show you since I found it very useful in doing things in the house and here. So it might be a trick that you probably have available to you, but you just haven't used yet. Now the problem is that for this particular project, my Angle Madness project, I need to scribe a line on the inside of the rabbit to basically mark where this panel gets cut for insertion. Now for this one here, it's not too bad. I can see in there. I can't see very well in these corners, but it's not horrible. I can get a bit of a visual. But on one of the other tiers, this opening here is much narrower. So it's a little bit harder to see. And certainly there will be times later in this build where I'm going to need to see some things that are already mounted and installed in here, and they're going to be difficult to see just peering in. So everybody has one of these inspection mirrors. This one here happens to be a fancy one that telescopes. And with the mirror, you can kind of tinker with it and get a chance to see something in there. Personally, I always have a hard time seeing things with this. I think it's because it reminds me too much of the dentist. So one of the tricks that I use is, I've seen in catalogs products that are like inspection cameras, or little cameras that'll go digging into things, but they're pretty expensive, and they're usually made for going inside of wall cavities and such for home inspectors. So not really something that we're going to want to buy and use. So what I do instead is I actually just use my phone. Now I have an iPhone, and with it you can get this like lightning to AV adapter. So I have this plugged into an HDMI cable that's plugged into this monitor here, and when I plug it in, it gets replicated over onto the monitor. So now anything that I'm doing here gets replicated over there. So of course when you're doing this, you can simply go into the video camera, and you're not really recording, you just have it on video. So I can pretty much stick it in here, and I've got a great view of everything that I'm looking at on the inside. And actually, I'm very surprised how well this is working in the low light. So later when I'm doing, in the case of this project, I have some hardware that I'm going to be installing on the sides here for attaching the tiers together through the different pipes that we're going to be using. Well, for that, it'll be really nice to be able to just prop this up on the inside there and have a live camera that I can go and reach in to do any of the settings in the configuration. Now, while this is an iPhone, I know that there are products that work similar to this for different Android devices. Of course, with Android being from different vendors, you're going to have to check your particular vendor, but certainly this is a really easy trick to do. And if you don't have a phone or you don't have a setup like this, of course, what you could always do is you can use, these webcams that are USB based are pretty inexpensive. So with this, with a long cable, just connect it up to a laptop, and then you could just do the same thing. Just run it in there under a preview mode. You can see about everything that you want. Now, in the past, I've used this one in a wall cavity. Before I had the iPhone, I had a little laptop. I just plugged this thing in, and I was needing to do something. I thought, well, it's crazy, but it's going to help. So I just had this thing in, and I just pushed it inside the wall cavity, and I was able to look around to find the things that I needed to find in there. Now, if you have neither of those, you can have even another option. A lot of people have this GoPro camera, the Hero 3, and it has a network interface. And basically, it has software that runs on the iPhone as well as Android devices that lets you connect to the phone and use it as a screen for a preview. Now, I'm going to go ahead and leave this cable on so we're going to be able to see what's going on with it. So if I first turn on the network connector that's on the Hero, so now we have the blue light blinking, meaning that the network connector is waiting for somebody to connect to it. So we can go over here to the settings, basically look under Wi-Fi, and we'll find that we can create an ad hoc network to this device. So we can create to, the Hero Cam that I've got. So now that we're connected to it, we can run the software. Let me go ahead and turn on this camera. So when I go into the GoPro software, I can go to the camera control. There's a preview. So now we've got the preview of what's coming out through the camera. Now this camera, when it does this preview mode, what it's doing is it's encoding the video, it's writing it to the card, and then it beams it over. So there's actually a fairly significant delay. So you can see that there's about a 3-second delay before what happens goes onto the screen. But still, you could use something like this. You don't need the TV for this one. So you could put this in here and use this as your way of seeing what's going on the inside of the cabinet. And this has really good low light capabilities as well. If you're setting this up, you're going to want to set it up on a lower frame rate if you're trying to see inside there and it's a little bit dark. If you were to set it up, say, on the Hero 3's 240 frames per second mode, you're going to have a real hard time in there under the low light. But this is another way of getting some preview of what's going on down there. So there you go, a couple different ideas of how you can use some cameras or your phone, things like that you probably have lying around already, and use them to, give yourself a little hand in the shop. Hope that helps.